Hello and welcome to this beautiful episode of Word Empowerment Seminar. This particular Word Empowerment Seminar, we're going to be dealing on something that you might think is odd, but it is actually a reality and it still holds sway in the scriptures. I'm talking about how to have a sex-free relationship. How to have a sex-free relationship. Now, I know in our generation, it's a big deal when you think about how to have a sex-free relationship, because typically when we in quote love someone, basically the next thing is to make love to them, and basically that phrase is not necessarily scriptural, to make love, because to make love to someone that you're not married to is to abstain from sexual activities, and that's God's standard. Even though this generation has basically evolved, that sex seems to be trivial to most people and seems to be something that is just one of those things. But to God, God still holds sex in high esteem. I was discussing with someone some time ago, and she was telling me that she had sexual related issues, and she said that that's the only thing that she knows that she does that God is not happy with. And the tone of her voice made me understand that maybe she thinks that it's one of those things. But God's standard is that sexual immorality is something that we should avoid. The Bible says we should flee it. And even though in this generation it seems so normal to have sexual relationships with people that you, in quotes, love, it is not God's way. And it is still possible to live in relationship with someone that you love without having that sexual thing coming into that relationship. And also, God has called us to live a sexually pure life. So it starts from our thinking, our mind. And so how do we maintain these sexual pure relationships? I want to read something from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 7. I'll read verse 1 and verse 1 and 2, then I'll read verse 8. It says, "Now, for the matters that we wrote about, it is good for a man not to have sexual relationships with a woman." That's the first statement he made. It is good for a man not to have sexual relationship with a woman. But since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. Now, let me just establish something that Paul said here. He says it's good for us not to have sexual relationships with one another, whether it's man or woman. We should live a life of celibacy. That's what I was saying. But because sexual immorality abounds, and trust me, in the time of Paul, what we have in our day is, the time of Paul was child's play. Let me put it that way. What Paul was referring to here was child's play when it comes to our day, because in our day sexual immorality abounds. So Paul said that the solution to curb sexual immorality is each man should marry, each woman should marry. So it's so important that you understand this. But we're going to say in verse 8 that now he's not talking to the unmarried people and to the widows. It is good for them to stay unmarried as I do. But if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. Now, it's important to know this. As long as we are humans, we have a passion, and there is a tendency for us to be driven by sex. That's why it's called sex drive. That sexual desire drives us. So it takes self-control to manage it. Self-control. So Paul is saying that if you are going to be able to stay pure in your relationship without having sexual relationships until you get married, you need to practice self-control. Now, self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. But that fruit of the Spirit operates effectively when there are boundaries. So if you're going to have and maintain a sexual pure relationship, you need to put up boundaries. And it starts first of all with your mind, as I said. First, make a decision with yourself that you want to have a sex-free relationship. It's so important. So because if you decide that you're going to have a sex-free relationship, it will actually help you take a notch further in your self-control. So that decision will hold you. If you're just thinking that, okay, now I did that day and there, when the temptation comes, it might be difficult for you to hold back. So that's the first step. It starts with you. Maintain your mind to have a sex-free relationship. Then when you get into relationship with with a lady as a guy, or a girl, or a guy as a lady, communicate that decision. Communicate that decision. That's the second thing. Communicate that decision to the person that's your partner. That's it. Until we get married, I don't want us to have any sexual relationship, whether it is from ordinary cuddling to even intercourse. We don't want to have that. And understand and get a feedback from the person that, see, I have that same decision. Because if you've decided to be sexually pure, but your spouse or your partner hasn't made a decision, there's a high tendency for you to fall for the temptation. Because remember, I said it's a drive. So communicate with your partner your decision, and also ensure that your partner has the same decision. Now, once you communicate, the first is that make that decision yourself. Second, communicate with your partner and ensure that your partner has made that same decision. Then the third is now for you, two of you, to build boundaries that you guys can cross. It's so important that two of you are on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, there are days where you will be vulnerable and your partner will not be vulnerable, so you can make that decision and stop it from happening. And there are days where your partner will be vulnerable and you will be stable, so you guys can accountable to each other. If you're not on the same page, when you are vulnerable, your partner that has not decided to stay pure will actually want to satisfy you, and that then will be sinful. So as you've made that decision together, put boundaries that will help uphold the self-control. For instance, you guys can have a rule that we can never be in the same place in a closed environment alone. We can never be in an enclosed environment. Once you catch yourself in an enclosed environment, what do? Take a stroll. We take a stroll. That's a kind of a boundary. We can never discuss sensual things on the phone. Because when you discuss sensual materials, with someone that you're dating or someone that you're in a relationship with, you're actually breeding the need for sex. And that will actually be difficult for you to control when the drive starts. So don't have a rule that I'm not going to discuss sensual things with my person I'm dating. So that's so important. There are other things that you can put in. Another thing you can do is to have an accountability partner, or let me put that way, someone that you are accountable to, someone that can check out on you and ask you questions, see how far with this, how far are you going with your decision to stay pure. Because in our generation, it is difficult. You might have heard about the news about the Chrisland incident, a 10-year-old girl and all the drama behind it. It's interesting how even at a young age, we can be exposed to things that we're not supposed to be exposed to. So it's important that you as an individual have been exposed to many things that can trigger your sexual drive. But if you have these things in place, you'll be able to stand your ground and maintain the standards of God in your relationship. It's important to stay pure till you get married. It is helpful. It helps your marriage and it helps your conscience. So stay pure by taking these 3 steps. 1, decide that you're going to have a sex and pure relationship. 2, communicate to your partner that, see, this is what we're going to do and we're going to uphold it. Then 3, put boundaries. And with that, you will have the grace to withstand the sexual urge, even in a corrupt society as we are in this generation. This is Word Empowerment Seminar, and I hope this helped you. You can connect with us every Thursday, either on YouTube or on Facebook, every Thursday by 5:30 p.m. Also, if you're in the Enugu area, please, you can worship with us at the Cornerstone Church. I'm privileged to be the pastor of the Cornerstone Church, and it's an amazing place where you would actually experience God and you would be empowered to set your world on the right path. You can join us every Sunday by 8 a.m. for our first service, or 9:30 a.m. of our second service. The details are on the screen. Thank you so much, and I pray for you that your best life will be your daily experience. God bless you.